Hey, what's going on? This is Tyler with Maggio, and I'm here with our producer, Eric Ferris.
Hello.
He's going to introduce himself, everyone.
This is Eric with Maggio. I do music production, songwriting, actually anything music related.
We just got out of a rehearsal, actually, where you were playing guitar and singing as well.
That is correct.
So we're going to touch on something that I get asked a lot and get brought up. When should you buy your tracks online, and then when should you hire a producer to help you produce your tracks? This is kind of an important topic, and I think that it might help some of you come to the conclusion of whether or not you want to do one or the other. So do you have anything to say about that real quick before we jump in?
I think both options are valid options. There's a lot of factors that come into play. The genre of music and the skill level of the artist. But there's certainly nothing wrong with finding a track online and writing to it. Whether it ends up being the final music is another thing. But it can work. I think it works great in the rap genre and hip-hop and some pop that is heavily influenced by hip-hop music. A little bit more difficult in the pop range.
In rock, too, it's like you can't really find,
Yeah, you kind of need a band for that. But, you don't need a band, but...
It does help. It does help.
Yeah.
So bringing it up, rap, I work with a lot of rap artists here in Dallas, Texas. I think quantity is the big issue here, right? So you're trying to spit out a lot of tracks, and budget is going to be an issue, right? So if you're spitting out a lot of tracks and you're hiring a producer for every single track, it can get very expensive very fast. Now, that being said, you're going to have some amazing tracks, but if you're getting into it, releasing a lot of tracks, maybe buying your beats online might be the way to go.
Probably for the rap genre. Now, the thing you can get by working with the producer is, I feel like ultimately you want to get to the point where you're doing some of your own producing. And if you never see the process or you're never around the process, then it's going to be more difficult to learn. So if you can get with the producer, kind of see how it happens and kind of see like behind the scenes of how it's put together, it's more of a learning experience that you're building on for the future. So you may be paying for the beat, but you're also gaining knowledge. So it's like taking a class.
Right.
as long as you're paying attention and you're asking questions, and your producer is willing to, let you see what's going on.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because there's a couple artists that I work with. One of them is Trey Houston. He started to do his own beats, and I think it's helps with, in terms of structure, you can understand lyrically now, and then we could cut the beat the way I want it to sound because I'm producing it, or I'm working with a producer that can lead you. Is one of the things that we were talking about earlier is a producer can be with you during the whole process and kind of really guide you and make a more fleshed out song at the end of it all.
Well, one of the things that's super valuable in having a little bit of knowledge on producing is when you come to a producer or someone that is going to help you with the song. If you have no music whatsoever, you could tell somebody, well, I want it to be a beat, but that means 1,000 different things.
Yeah.
So if you can at least get a start, a vibe, and you could use another song as a reference, that's totally fine. But the more that you can get close to what you hear in your head, the easier it is to end up with a final product that sounds that way.
Kind of makes sense in terms of so someone that's starting out, they find these tracks online and they find what they like, right? So they're gonna be able to sift through tons and tons and tons of music, be able to find what they like, get a vibe, get a mood, come to you or any other producer and be able okay, this is the style I like. Can we customize the song to be for me alone, so a million other people aren't using this same track?
Yeah, so it's the same concept of taking a reference song, a popular song on the radio, and saying, I really like the way their vocals sound, or I really like the tempo of this. But it's even better if you can, find, loops or beats Now, with that being said, we go back to what we were talking about earlier. It is possible that you end up with the finished product without getting a producer involved. But I think that final product may not sound exactly like you wanted it to sound. But again, it depends on the genre and what you're looking for. So the more complex, the more it makes sense to work with somebody who's done it hundreds of times. One of the things to think about when you're going into the studio is how much help you're going to need. And one of the biggest things in pop music is vocal production. You just don't go in and sing the melody and then be done. I mean, there are songs like that,
It's pretty rare though.
Piano vocal, guitar vocal, but normally when those stripped down songs with not very many instruments, it's more important that the vocals be handled, especially because they are now one of the primary, if not the primary, focus of the song. So, but it wouldn't be unusual to end up with 50 vocal tracks in a pop song.
Yeah, I mean, 20 stacks, 30 harmonies. I mean, it's pretty standard, but it helps a lot to have someone to guide you through that process. Unless you already understand the process, which is a lot of people do coming into it and they get it, but it can be daunting. And so having a producer to kind of guide you through that, it is kind of nice.
I think if you go in with the expectation, and first of all, this particular industry, when you're an artist, isn't for someone who's not willing to put something into it. And one of the things you put into it is money, because there's a whole bunch of processes that happen. But I would say if you set your expectation to do a song and to do it with professionals, meaning a professional producer, a professional engineer, the whole mix master process, budget that for a song and see how the process goes and see what part of the process you think you can handle, and what part of the process you really need the expert help. And then when you move forward, you may be able to stretch your budget a little bit further, depending on what you're able to bring to the table for each song.
Yeah, budget's a big thing that we can touch on later in another podcast, because a lot of people don't understand what's going to happen when they come into the studio. They think they're just going to record it and that's the end, and it's like it's not the end if you want it to be as good as you can make it, and it can be kind of stressful. So having a good idea of what the budget is something we'll touch on later. But one thing I do want to touch on real quick for beats and stuff online, if you're pulling it off of YouTube, if you're pulling it off of some of the other websites that provide beats, there are some issues from a mixing standpoint, from an engineer standpoint, that a lot of these beats are going to be super compressed just because they want to compete with the other beats. So when you're going online, you're listening, you're going through the beats. If one beat just like slams, it sounds better, and then the next one sounds quiet, you're not going to want to buy the quiet one because it just doesn't have the energy, it doesn't have the punch. It's a double-edged sword though, because when you get that, unless you're pulling the whole package of like getting the stems and everything, which is going to cost a lot more, you're going to get the track compressed, and there's not really much we can do with it at the end. I mean, there is things that we can do, but it will not sound as good as if you had just had the track uncompressed to begin with. And then if I'm just working with the track as a mixing engineer, and let's say like this guitar is like, or a synth or something is getting in the way of the vocal, I can't really adjust it. I can go in and kind of do some mastering, editing and mixing on the track, but at the end of the day, that guitar is still going to be there. Whereas, in a mix, if I had the actual guitar, I could bring it down, which you can get with the stems, which is another thing that I mentioned. But yeah, so just be careful about that, because a lot of these things are going to be limited and compressed, and you're just going to feel like once it goes through a final mastering process, it's just not going to have as much energy as it could with your vocals on it.
Good point. Well said. So let me interject one point about the loops. So when you go online, there's a variety of outlets where you can get beats from all different subgenres, but so can a million other people. So the difference is And when you buy the 15 or 20 or $30 track, there's no telling how many people are going to use that. There's nothing that's going to set you apart other than what you're bringing to the song. So if you want to stand out, then you have to either be able to get creative with that, which means you have to have some kind of editing skills, or you run the risk of, hundreds or thousands of people that are using the same backing music.
Right, because when you buy these beats, you don't own the beat. They're licensing out to you, and then there's something in the clause or the contract or whatever when you fill it out, basically saying that they can sell this beat to anybody else. Also, a lot of times there's something in there, let's say you blow up and you make millions of dollars off of this track. They probably have some clause in there where they're taking a lot of that. And I don't know.
Yeah, there are limitations on how many...
It's like 10,000 plays or streams or something.
Yeah, each one's different. You just have to read the fine print on it. But so there's usually 3 levels. You're at the entry level, which is fairly inexpensive, and then you get into like stems, which is all the tracks broken out, and that's several $100s, and then you get into a custom job, which is basically you're starting from scratch. Mm-hmm. And then that is more expensive, depending on, the complexity of the song and whoever is doing the work. So those are usually about the 3 levels.
Which is almost about the price as like, if it's just like, let's say rap, if it's just a beat, that's basically what a custom producer would be if you're having them do that. Now pop's a totally different story, and rock and all the other genres, but at that point, it's like you might as well find a producer that you like and keep working with them, which a lot of the artists here I know do that. Normally,
when you find a good fit between an artist and a producer, not everybody is the best at working with each other, but when you do find someone that you work really well with, you tend to develop a relationship which can really take an artist to the place that they want to go, because you learn how to communicate your ideas and end up with the product at the end that you want. And that develops over time, but there's a lot of close interaction between, how a song starts and how a song ends. And so most of the artists that I work with, we continue to work on songs down the road, depending on how aggressive they are with getting songs out. So
I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, this was a quick podcast, and we can talk about this all night because it's just an interesting topic. And, a lot of people have this issue and are curious about it, but Eric and I will be on some more podcasts. We'll be releasing some more, talking more about things if you're an artist, if, questions that you might have and issues that you might run into as an artist, which, we're just kind of here to help guide you through that. So thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time.
All right. I see everyone. Y'all look great.
Cheers.